Hello and good evening. Welcome to our workshop tonight. We're so glad that you're joining us. I usually have note cards, but I don't have them, so I'm just going to tell you what's on my heart. I'm really excited that you guys are here at our container gardening class. Community Homeworks is a nonprofit organization. We get our gifts from grants, funds, and donations. So if you feel inclined to donate, you can do so at our website at communityhomeworks.org. Community Homeworks is on a mission to empower our neighbors to sustain safe, sustainable, and dignified homes, and we get our fundings through gifts and donations. Um, Tonight's class is a really exciting one to me because it is our introduction to container gardening class. We have a full house, so I'm glad for all of the people that are here. And Jessica Hagan is going to help facilitate this workshop, so I won't spend too much time talking because I'm sure that we are ready to get to learning.
Thanks, TiAnna. So I wrote this little quote up here because I think it's important for us to first talk about killing plants before we talk about growing them. Like, I think there's a lot of pressure when it comes to gardening, and I want to help us get rid of that. So there are no gardening mistakes, only experiments. So you might kill all of these plants, and that's okay. I've killed a lot of plants in my gardening experience, and I'm still killing plants. But I learned something almost every time I kill plants. So we're specifically talking about container gardening. And like TiAnna mentioned to us, this idea kind of came about because TiAnna caught the gardening bug, and specifically the container gardening bug. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about like common problems with container gardening, and overwatering, I think, is how we ended up on this trail. So we decided to offer this workshop. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is why container garden. Why do we do this? It helps us grow in areas that we might not otherwise be able to grow plants. It's accessible. It's easy to maintain a container garden. You can monitor for pests. You can control the conditions a lot more. You can move the plants indoors if you need to and overwinter them. It provides you an opportunity to grow food year round, to grow food close by, so to reduce your food miles. And to me, that's empowering, and that's a really cool way to build community and connect with others. So that's why we chose herb gardens. So the beautiful thing about herb gardens is you start with this little garden, and if it survives, again, no pressure. But if it does survive, you may be able to give away some of your herbs. You may be able to propagate those herbs and give them to others. A lot of the plants that you have on your table came from gardens at my school. So we do a lot of container gardening because we have limited space. We've also dealt with contaminated soil in some spots. So lead paint, like that's something that you have to worry about, that many of us have to worry about. Growing in containers helps us not have to worry about that so much. So a lot of these plants came from the school. It gives us a really good opportunity to make things like herb dip, lavender bouquets to give away, and then plants to give to you all. So container gardening also builds community. So there are some things that we need to know about container gardening. There is a pot for every plant. There's a soil or soil mixture for every plant. And it's important that you have a bit of a basic understanding about those things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's see. Choosing your location. This is definitely the most important thing. If you have less than 6 or 8 hours of sunlight a day in this area that you want to grow, you really need to rethink that and make sure that you have plants that can grow there. Most vegetables and herbs and fruit trees need at least 6 to 8 hours a day, more like 8 hours a day. So you need to know where you're growing. Once you know where you're growing, you need to think about pot size. So, for example, and location. So it's pretty easy to grow tomato plants in a 5-gallon bucket that has holes drilled in the bottom of it. But you might not be okay with having a whole patio full of Harbor Freight 5-gallon buckets. Like, to you, this might be unsightly. So you need to think, like, could I maybe do the 5-gallon buckets behind a bunch of, these cute little ornamental pots? So you do need to plan a little bit. but there's really no limit to what and where you can grow. Um, so once you know how much sunlight you have, you can decide which plants you want to plant. And like TiAnna said, there are a lot of really cool themed gardens. These are all food themed gardens. Um, Over there are some tea gardens, but something I also like to talk about is you can grow native plants. So these are all native plants in here. So native plants are plants that have adapted to this region and support biodiversity and wildlife. So you can companion plant, you can have pollinator plants like these next to your food plants like these, so that you know you have pollination happening. So pollination, we won't go too deep into it, though I'd love to talk to you endlessly about pollination. I'm just going to keep it simple that when you have pollinator plants next to food plants, you have a higher yield in your food, right? The insects are definitely visiting your patio. When you choose your plants, you need to then consider what are you going to grow them in, and then what kind of soil mix do you need. I personally prefer to make my own soil, which is what you're going to do today when we do the hands-on portion of this program. The reason that I like to make my own soil is there are three main ingredients that I use, sometimes a fourth ingredient, and I can combine those ingredients in different ways to meet different plants' needs. So, for example, if I'm doing a succulent garden, I'm going to want more sand than I want compost or other things because they need they need really, really good drainage. So buying your own ingredients, so to speak, is a really great way to be able to do that. However, storing said ingredients, and that can be a pain. And you might just want to buy a bag of pre-mixed soil, and that's okay too. But you do need to read the label. You need to know what's in there. If you are growing food plants, again, you're going to need some fertilizer in there. So you need to make sure that you're buying soil or making soil that is specifically made for food stuff. Let's see. When you buy your plants, you may have, like TiAnna decided she wanted to grow all the things, right? And then she was going to figure out where to put them later. That's fine too. That's totally cool. That's how I do a lot of gardening. I'm like, oh, that's pretty. I like it. Tastes good. I'm going to grow it and then I'll find a spot. So, knowing your plants or just reading your plant tags, like everything that you need to know is on this tag. So, for example, this is a patio tomato. So it tells me the cultivar, which is patio. So I could take that information. I could look that up online and I could find out more information about that plant's needs. I can turn to the back. I can see, okay, it needs full sun. That I know that needs about 8 hours of sun. For tomatoes, there's determinate and indeterminate tomatoes. For patio planting, it is good to use determinate. So that basically means we know how big it's going to get. I do grow some heirloom tomatoes in buckets and they work just fine. So again, like try the things. There are a lot of rules around, and even in the handouts that I gave you, there are a lot of rules. Break them. Like just try it. You are not really supposed to be able to grow milkweed in a container, and I'll probably have to move this eventually, but it's doing okay right now. So just try it. Just have fun with it. Other things that you want to consider, especially when you're doing groupings like we are, we need to think about the plants that are in this pot. So in front of you, you have sage and thyme and oregano and chives and I don't know what else is in there. Parsley. Okay. So we can look these plants up to figure out what they need, or maybe they came with a tag. We're going to find out that some of those plants get much taller than the others. So this is where having a little bit of a designer eye comes in handy. But if you grab these sheets over here that TiAnna has prepped for us, it tells you exactly how to plant these gardens. So TiAnna and I are actually going to demonstrate the salsa garden tonight. So when we flip this over, There's an actual map that's going to show us. So it really does take the thinking out of it. You just have to find the plants. Okay, once we have selected our container, we've selected our plants. The biggest thing that you need to think about with selecting containers, you can grow plants in anything, but if the water can't drain off the plants, they will eventually die. So yeah, go ahead. From the pots that you buy, yeah, so you need to be mindful of that. There are standards, so definitely research and know what you're growing in. I mean, there are certain, like, people grow food in shoes, people grow food in blue jeans. Like, I think my grandpa like grew potatoes in these blue jeans that my grandma like sewed up and put along the fence, and it was hilarious, but it worked. Like, there are a lot of things that you can use, but yeah, know where they come from. Like, if I'm using this bucket and I don't know what was in this bucket before, I'm probably not going to use it, especially if there could be a chemical. Microplastics, that depends on the plastic. It depends. You do need to think about weatherization, right? Because it's going to be outside. So that's something you should consider. But I don't think that it's something that I worry about with most of the pots that are sold like at stores. Yeah. No. No, that's great. That's great. So she's asking about backyard soil, like what to do if you don't know what your soil is like. We're specifically talking about containers. So we are going to control. That's one of the beautiful things about doing a container. But there are ways that you can test your soil. Yeah, for sure. And that's super important, especially if you're doing food stuff. So like I was saying, if you have lead and things in your soil, this helps you with that. Lead testing, those are very expensive tests. I don't know what Kalamazoo offers for soil testing. I'm sure through the extension office for sure. So your soil, it needs to be able to drain. Some pots are sold and they don't tell you these things. Like when you buy this pot, it's not going to tell you that there's the holes that are underneath here are not really poked through, or that you need to twist this to open it. So what I always do is I fill the pot with water and see how quickly it drains. So if I were planting in the ground, I would do a drainage test first thing. Well, second thing. First, I map the light. Second, I test the drainage. Because again, if I want to grow vegetables, I know they don't want to be sitting in soggy water, soggy soil. So check the drainage. And that's simple. Just take a watering can and pour in there. So, TiAnna shared with me that she really, really loved this pot, a pot. And she, even though it didn't have holes in it, she wanted to keep it because it was so beautiful. And like, I get it. I love vintage USA pots. I have like 100 of them. And I used to just put my house plant. I have a lot of house plants. I used to just put them directly in there. And I would try filling the bottom with rocks to be like, okay, I'm going to give the roots a little bit of a break. That doesn't really work. It doesn't. It's not long term. It'll get you by for a couple years, but 25 years in, you're going to be like, oh my God, why'd I do that? So what you can do, because beautiful pots are cool, and maybe you want to switch them out with the seasons. I don't know. Whatever your jam is, you can have an inner pot that could just simply be a basic gardening pot that you got from wherever. You know that this is designed to have good drainage because this plant was chosen to actually grow plants in. So you can plant this up and then pop it in here. You're going to water this plant. Once it's thoroughly soaked through, you're going to move this guy and then dump this water out. You can dump it on the plant next door and save water that way. So if you have something beautiful like this that doesn't have drainage, still use it.
But don't try to drain holes in it because it won't work.
No, you could borrow a drill from Community Homeworks maybe and drill holes at the bottom of the pots. I've not tried that. Have you tried it? It did. Oh, okay. So Sounds like, yeah, TiAnna has. Yeah, you don't want to break your beautiful pot, right? So just pop something in it. A lot of times, I should have brought one for an example because I just killed one. Do you know you get the gift like a gift plant? And I love plants as gifts, so I'm not saying anything bad. But a lot of times when you receive a gift plant, unless it's been purchased from a really great plant store, it's already dying. Like bonsai trees, for example, they are dead long before you get them home. And I hate this because then you get this guilt like, oh, I killed the thing. Well, no, it was dead before you got it because there weren't proper drain holes. Or you had something like this, but then there was this paper, solid waterproof paper around it, holding it all in. And it's all shrink wrapped on here. So it's not convenient to take that off and dump that out, right? So as soon as you get a plant gifted to you, unless it looks high quality, has great drainage, get it out of that pot, which is what I think you learned, right? Okay. So containers, soul, we talked about soul. In a minute, we're just going to dig right in here. Okay. So putting it all together. So in front of you, you have a little kit. If you do not have a kit, TiAnna, what are we doing for next steps for that? Is there anybody who would like an herb garden and does not have one? Cool. All right. So in front of you, let's go through what you have on the table. So you have this green pot. Can I borrow one of your kits here? Thanks. All right. So you have this. Hopefully everybody has one of these information packets. If you don't have an information packet, we can get one for you now, because you are going to turn to this page where you're going to find some beautiful art from the kiddos. And this is a container soil recipe. So this is a recipe for soil. So there is going to be some listed ingredients. Once you get there, you're going to see compost, builder sand, coconut coir, fertilizer. All of those things are over here. So you're going to actually build the soil in this. So as a group or individually, you are going to come over and I'm going to help you build some soil in here. Now, just because there's a recipe, again, we're going to break the rules a little bit. Just because there's a recipe and maybe you did it exactly right, I'm going to show you how to use your hand to make sure that the consistency is good. Because if your soil is not draining properly, again, you're going to redo this. So you're going to build soil here. Then you have this. So this is a pretty good size container for growing plants. So another thing about me is I do not like to buy really anything, but especially stuff like this, because I like to reuse the containers to keep the plastic out of the landfill. But also, like, this looks perfectly fine to me. So these were all hanging baskets, and I'm just taking off the hanger. You can buy these used at like Schramm's greenhouse, the greenhouses on Romance. There's tons of places that you can get these. People's Food Co-op, I think, also for like 99 cents. But I find these like free by the side of the road all the time. So then in here, you have your herbs. You have this, which you don't have to use this. We have some gloves around. If you prefer to have gloves, go ahead and use them. Then you have this. So another note about these things. Again, I really don't like to spend money on something to catch water. Like, kind of seems ridiculous to me. So this is like a plate that I got in a free box at a garage sale sometime. Plus I like it because it's a fish. So again, you can use just about anything. Old plates that are cracked. I have a ton of plates that have chips. At the school, we get chips in the plates. We can't use them any longer. We use them for plants. But we did happen to have a bunch of these left over. So you have these. So you don't need to put that on there now because we're not going to water right away. You also have a plant tag. There should be 2 on each table. But this is just for you to look at and amongst yourselves talk about, and TiAnna and I will move about too, like what do the plants need? Now, this tag isn't maybe specifically a plant that you have on your table. It might be one of these plants, but there's a lot of information to be had here. So I just want to make sure everybody understands how to read this tag. You don't have tags? Oh, because I have your kit. I've got your kit. You'll also find popsicle sticks. So if you're not sure what any of these plants are in here, or maybe you want to name them tonight, like maybe you want to name Charlotte, and all of these friends need names. You can do that with these. Yeah. And then a Sharpie. These spoons you will use when you're mixing the soil. This is for fertilizer. So don't dip with these things quite yet. All right. So you all are going to work at your tables. TiAnna and I are available to move about, but we are going to build an epic, and I mean epic, salsa garden. Oh, also, my bark friend reminds me that I should tell you, if you have a super large planter, then you can put stuff in the bottom of the planter to take up space so that you don't have to pay for all that soil, or maybe it's too heavy for you. But what you should know is that I have pots on my patio that have had the same soil in them for 20 years, and I just amend it. So I just add to that soil. So what I do in the bottom of my pots is I add like bark, wood, grass clippings. Now those things will change the soil chemistry a little bit, so you have to be careful. But for today, for TiAnna, we're going to do this. Okay. A thing to note about the recipe. So it says like 2 parts compost, 2 pots. We'll meet all over there. And then 1 part this, 2 parts that. So you have little scooper science things in front of you to use. So 1 part is just like 1 of those. 2 parts is 2 of those. What else do we need to know, TiAnna? Don't forget to smell the soil. So my students put this on here to remind me. It's true. So like the best way that you can know if your soil is healthy is by smelling it. So it should smell very earthy. If you're smelling like nasty basement or like a sour smell, then the bacteria moisture levels are off in your soil and you need to amend it. Sometimes I've had to like scrap the entire, not the plant, you can save the plant by hosing it off, but the entire contents of a container. So you want to smell it. And even when we mix this stuff, I'm going to invite you to smell it. I did bring, this is compost. So this is some compost that we made at the school, and also mixed in here is a little bit of compost donated from a family. So they have a really great compost bin, and I'm struggling a little bit to get the compost to break down. So I'm trying to inoculate my compost with their good stuff. This is worth smelling. It looks disgusting. There's food and eggshells, and I think there's some critters in here, but it's really magical what you can do. So when you're going to catch the container gardening bug or just gardening bug today. And then in a couple of years, you're going to be here for a compost class because you're going to be like, oh, I can make my own soil. Yes. That is amazing. So would you share his information if anybody's interested? So is he collecting compost? Sweet. Sweet. I know Vine Neighborhood has piloted a really great compost program. I don't know if it's still happening. Yeah. Oh, okay. He's amazing. Okay. So yeah, he's amazing. And I think that all neighborhoods need this type of thing. It's a great way to keep food out of the landfill. And you do need to add compost to your containers. If you're growing food stuff, you need to add compost. Compost is a slow release fertilizer. So in our case today, we are going to amend the soil with some fertilizer. This is what I use. There are lots of other brands that work just as well. This just happens to be what I have. one bag of this will last like forever. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
So compost is slow release. Sorry, compost is slow release, and then this is a quicker release. So it'll tell you on the back here. You can make like compost tea. So use a gallon jug, mix it up. Make sure that you read this because it's all different. Like I have a few different types of fertilizer. The recipe's different for each one. What I do, mix it up, put it in the gallon jug, and then mark on the outside what it is. Make sure nobody can drink it. You know, that type of thing. Yeah.
any other questions? So
That-
the question
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the question was, how often do we have to add the fertilizer?
That's a really good question. So we're going to add fertilizer to the soil tonight, to our containers. And then you are going to add fertilizer in 1 month or a little more than a month when we come together here. No, a little less than a month. I don't know what day it is. 18th.
Mhm.
Yeah. What is today? Is today the 20th? Okay. Okay. So in a month, when you return, we are going to add fertilizer. And then we're actually going to send you home with some of this because, again, like this is enough for an entire neighborhood. And what I have found is I have purchased this. And then I don't know if I didn't seal the bag completely, you know, seal it or what, but a little bit of moisture gets in here and it turns into just a giant rock. So I prefer to just share this. Again, just another way that we can build community with plants is like, let's buy this together and let's share it. So we will give you a fertilizer when you return on the 18th. And we'll make sure you have it here tonight in your container.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes. So the question was, how do you ensure that the compost that you get is good compost if you don't want to get compost with fillers?
Yeah,
Is that a good question?
that's a really good question. I believe it's illegal to sell humanure. There are people that make humanure and use it successfully. It's not necessarily a bad type of compost. It's you know a little uncomfortable to talk about, but there are plenty of people that are doing it. As far as I know, though, it's not sold commercially. You would need a special permit, I would think, to even think about selling it commercially. But of course, you need to know your ingredients. There are other like plastics make their way into compost and soil. Like depending on the quality of soil ingredients that you buy, you may find a bunch of plastic in there. So definitely know your source and make sure you're reading the ingredients and probably have a look in the bag if you can and talk to them about it. If you buy soil or compost from a local person, like if you buy it at the farmer's market from Chris, it's going to be right on. Like it's going to be, go ahead. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes complete sense. There are alternatives to compost or natural fertilizers as well. There are chemical combinations which are also deemed completely safe that you might be more comfortable using that are in a more controlled, made in more of a controlled environment. But I definitely recommend doing your research. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions before we get dirty? Sweet.
Let's grow.
All right. So let's see. The teacher in me wants to like dismiss you by birthday or dismiss you by your favorite color. but I don't think we should do that unless you want to do that.
Yes.
And then that we are.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yes, we are.
So if you were born in January, February, or March, you can come over and start collecting your ingredients. I'm sorry. So make sure your recipes are out. You are growing edibles. So you're going to look on your recipe card and you're going to find where it says edibles. You're going to bring your green container, take everything else out of it, and then you're going to bring your either this thing that says science, 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 or this thing that I have a story that's important that this says science if you're using science, or this little thing here. All right. So once you get over here, again, feel free to feel these things. If you want gloves, there's gloves on the table. Feel free to smell it. So we are using, this is perlite and the coconut core blend. So I really skipped a big part of my presentation, which is I am a strong advocate for peat-free container mixes. So peat is a non-sustainable ingredient that is often used to amend soil and to help with drainage, but this stuff works perfectly fine. It's way better for the environment and it doesn't destroy our bogs. So it's really important to me that we use this kind of container mix. So you're going to mix this stuff. We have that. Then over here in the blue bucket is the compost. And then we have builder's sand right here. So are you the only January, February, March birthday? Oh my gosh, so this is cool. This is so cool. All right, April, May, June. Let's see where you are.
Mm-hmm. So it's, no, you're fine. Do whatever you need.
Is somebody's birthday
Jessica,
today?
it's 211, right?
I think so. It's right there. They're in random spots around here. But also, if you don't want to scoop, you can bring your shovel.
So 2 parts compost, 2 parts coconut
Core.
and 1 part sand, and 2 tablespoons of fertilizer. So 2, 2, 1.
Yep. I am going to, you're going to come to me for the fertilizer.
2, 2, 1. You got too big? Oh, she like.
So once you have those 3 ingredients, stop by to get some stinky
So 2,
fertilizer
2.
right here.
2, 1.
Smells
Yes, ma'am.
wonderful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get back to your table and it's not quite enough, you just can come up and
Get
double
some
that
more.
recipe.
Yeah.
So if you are waiting to get the ingredients, you could start writing out your tags if you know what plants you have there in front of you.
Yep.
So sage, parsley. If you write the tags, then I'll come around and tell you. There's thyme, oregano. Here, let me write them up here for you. Oh, you need one for you? I think it's this one.
2. 2.
2. Yeah. All right. Is it stuck? I'm here. I'm here for this. Oh, wow. Oh, it was not just you. Did I bring kids' clothes? So it's funny. All right. Oh, you ready for some fertilizer?
Yes.
Here we go. This stuff is so good. And this has all the good bacteria in it and the microbes. Yeah. Thank you. That's parsley, yes. Thyme. Sage? Yep. Chives.
Well, you get 1 bucket, 1 of these. Oh, okay.
I'm really sorry about those gloves.
So sand, that's coconut core. So it's 2, 2, and 1.
And then TiAnna, I'm going to bring our bucket over.
Okay.
If it makes you feel
Nope,
better,
just one
this is
sand.
our shovel.
Yep. Let me make sure I'm telling you correctly.
You doing edibles? Yeah. That's okay.
Oh, it's okay.
No.
It's okay.
Because so this is the other thing. It's super like forgiving. So we'll just add more of the other things. I'll show you how to test it. This is us right here. All right, the rest of you can just come on over and start getting some ingredients. I don't remember.
Right.
I don't remember where I left off.
June, July, and August.
June, July, and August.
Yep.
2.
We need a container. So 2 of these.
You
2
need
of
more,
if
more,
you get
more.
the
One more.
Myers cup. Yep.
Oh, that's beautiful.
2 of those.
What she wants us to smell, is it?
No.
Yeah, smell it. Smell it.
No,
Smell
you
all
have
of
to,
it.
You have to
You
kind
know
of
what?
trick Miss Suzanne.
I didn't even know about compost or whatever because that house that I live in, they had a compost thing behind the garage, and I thought,
Yeah.
got rid of it. Well, I didn't know.
No.
That it was,
Like you could totally. Well, no, you could totally mix it in there too. If you need to.
This is the coconut core.
This is the coconut perlite.
And we just
This
need 2
down
tablespoons
here
of
is the
fertilizer.
sand and the compost.
So 2 of these, 1 scoop of
One.
sand, and 2 scoops of coconut core.
2.
What is that? Coconut what?
Coconut core?
Coconut core.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I can do this. It'll be easier for you to mix it. 1, 2.
Yep, a spiced Indian tea.
It's so good. Rangita makes the best tea in the world. Rangita. So Rangita is willing to share the recipe. It's wonderful. Let's give this to you. 1, 2.
And then you got fertilizer already?
An extra stick? Yes, I have a whole bunch of extra sticks.
Yep.
Once your soil is all mixed,
Mm-hmm. One more.
you're still mixing. Right.
2, and you just
right.
need some
Rainwater.
fertilizer, ma'am.
Yeah. I totally. It's
You
not
think you
bad
got the
though, right?
Yep. So 2. 1.
This one. That's very oregano. But here's what you're picking up. Do you like have a sensitive smeller because
2,
it
and
grows
you
with
just need
mint?
some fertilizer.
Yeah. So you're not.
Jessica has the fertilizer. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Here's the fertilizer.
Will you just grab?
So you can
Perfect.
start thinking about how you want to
I
arrange
need
these.
right
What
here.
I suggest you do is arrange them on the table.
1.
And if you have question about how tall they are going to get, then just let me know. You could use
Nope.
that as
The compost is.
2 of those.
Yes, ma'am.
So arrange them
those.
in your plastic little water catcher. Are you guys all mixed? You're all ready to go, right?
One more.
You are sweet. Okay, so
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Has everybody come to get the things that they need to
So,
get
yep, you
started?
can start doing that. And then once you have them arranged like you want, the sage gets pretty tall and the parsley will too. So just organize them the way that you'd like.
May I use this right quick? It's our turn
We'll
now.
mix up, and we'll mix up extra in here in case people need it.
they keep grabbing our stuff. We're going to charge them.
You're going to charge them? Okay, so once you have the soil all mixed up, you can arrange the plants in the little watering thing or somewhere on the table with giving consideration to height and spacing. So we're not going to space these out a ton, but something that you should note is that the parsley and the sage are going to get taller. So other than that, this is where you have creative control. Your sage is right here. No, on the table. And then your next step is you're going to put a little layer of soil in your pot. So you have them organized. Oh, okay. So I would put, my thought always is to put the sage in the center. And then the parsley, and then these can go around the side. Nope, leave that aside. So you're going to first put a little bit of soil in the bottom here. Oops, sorry. Maybe, but it's okay. So one more thing for everybody to note, when you buy a plant like this, so these were dug up and split from our school, but this is the actual planting depth, unless you're planting tomatoes, and then you want to plant a little bit higher to encourage some extra root growth. But once you put your soil in there, if you find that you need more soil mix, we have some blended up that you
I'm
can
making
use.
some right now for you.
And so we can add to that. So, but this is the depth that you want. Also, give consideration that when you water, that's going to shrink down a little bit. It's going to settle. Okay. You can go all the way to that line. Yep. Yep. You can go all the way to the line, and we will.
I'm doing well, interim. I didn't realize that the reason that I was coming to meet you was so that we could create some instructions for what the process is going to be tomorrow. Can you? I'm in class right now. Can you create a quick instructions that I can send out after the class? Oh yeah, it'll be fine. They'll get it when they get it. I'm not gonna be done with class probably until like 8:30. So I just Patty brought it to my attention. Okay, tell me what my options are. Okay. What's the easiest way do you think?
Yeah. It's going to settle a little bit though. So push down on it just to see.
Yep.
Also, something else to note, the reason that I don't fill the pots all the way to the top with soil is if you rain or when you water, you don't want to lose all of that soil. Yep. So
Yep.
you're going to dig a little hole in there.
Rank 5 and then
you're gonna
yeses. And
pop
let me
that
read you
plant
Patty's
in, and then
message
fill in
to me.
around it, and then push in the
You sent
soil around the
email
plant.
that gives
You got it. Yeah. Professional.
near.
Another thing to note is normally with a lot of container gardens, I would add a layer of mulch or whatever random natural stuff that I could find. But with these, they're planted so closely together that I don't really think we'll have to worry about that. Herbs go really quickly, and it's likely they're going to fill up this pot pretty soon. If you start to see that it's drying out, then feel free to add a layer of mulch to keep the moisture in. How are you guys doing? All right.
Yep.
You need a little more?
Okay. Perfect. I will call you about 9 o'clock because as long as I
You guys good? You're good. Mm-hmm. You could grow watermelons in your raised garden area out front. You could. So that's, I mean, like you can grow food anywhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Hmm. Yeah. It is. If it fails, let me know and I'll get you another plant. I am. So if you find that you don't really like the arrangement or something's too close to the side, you can move it around. Yes. Oregano, I don't think we do. Another plant I'm going to bring, let's see. Do you guys have room? You do. I love this plant. It's called nasturtium. Yeah, so it's edible. All parts of it are edible and it grows really fast and the pollinators love it. So just go ahead and put seeds in two opposite sides there. Two little seed babies for you. So just wherever you have a little bit of space. Hey friends, here I have some seeds for you to add. So this is nasturtium plant. It's a beautiful plant. The flowers are edible. The leaves are edible. It's an herb.
What is it called?
It's called nasturtium.
Nasturtium. Okay.
There are a lot of different varieties. Would you like to have red or would you like orange yellow mix? The red is my favorite as well. So these grow really quickly. And so you can just put them in two spots where they can fill in. And you will see leaves in a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when will they flower?
They'll flower 2 weeks after that.
Oh,
And they're gorgeous.
okay.
So I'm just going to set those right here.
So I wait till you're done and then
Wait till you're done and then plug them in. Mm-hmm. I have two seeds for you here. So these are nasturtium plants. And the flowers are edible and beautiful, and the leaves are as well. But they're also, the pollinators love them. So once you get that full of the soul, you can just
Yes.
put those in two different spots.
Oh, well, come on, girl. I'm ready. You better know it.
I have one or maybe two last messages for you before we wrap things up. So just give me your attention for just a couple more minutes. So if I bought these plants and I see there are a bunch of brown leaves here, you are going to gently clip them off. I use my fingernails. You can use tools. If you use tools to cut your plants, you should sterilize them between uses. I don't always remember to do that, but you should. So pick those off, because if they are diseased or just rotten, they're going to affect the overall health of your plants. So now that you have planted your container, you are going to very carefully water it. Also, I don't think some of you got these seeds. So this is one of my favorite patio plants. I grow these in every pot that I have, food or not, because I really like to eat the flowers and the leaves. This is a nasturtium plant. Plus the bumblebees love these guys. A lot of pollinators do. So I have seeds available here. There's red and then this blend. You can put a couple of these in your pot and you will see leaves in about a week. You will actually have flowers in a couple weeks after that. So I love these for like an introduction to growing plants from seed, because you're going to have success. Yeah, I'll leave them right here. You can check them out. So when you water, there's another important thing to know about watering. So can I borrow your pot? Okay. So you don't want to get the water on the leaves. You want to water around the outside. You want to avoid saturating this plant, because then you can have problems with mildew. You also want to water in the morning. That is the preferred time. If you water when it's really sunny, you could burn the plants, because it's inevitable. You're going to get some water on the leaves. And then if you water late at night, you could have problems with mildew and things like that. So how do you know? We're going to water tonight. Here I am watering around the outside. This is newly planted, so I want to do a really good job of watering it. How do I know when to water this again? So again, we talked about, when it's dry, but how do we tell? So you can tell a couple of different ways. Hopefully we have a pot that has really good drainage. I almost daily with my container plants, especially right now because we're in a drought, I check my plants almost at least once a day, if not every couple of days. So if you're comfortable, just stick your finger in there. If you bring your finger out and there is soil on your finger, then it's wet. If you bring your finger out and there's no soil, you probably need to water. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can use a stick, you can use whatever you want, or you can use one of these guys, which is a moisture meter, and then you just pop it in there. Boom. And you can look up here and you can see if you are in the zone that you have enough moisture or if it's too dry. So it's pretty wet. Because you have just planted these, I would still add water, because a lot of the water that's in there has just been added before the workshop, and it's going to evaporate out quickly. Plus, you want the roots to settle into that space. We are going to run out of time before we plant our salsa garden. So there are a couple things that I want to tell you. So with tomatoes, you want to refer to the page in your packet that is like a chart. This is a really great chart, and it's going to tell you how big of a container you need for specific plants. And that's going to be important, because if you are growing something like tomatoes, the roots need to be able to move about this pot and collect up a lot of nutrients. Also, with certain plants like tomatoes and certain wildflowers, you are going to want to cage them. So you can buy these cages for just a few dollars. I sometimes make my own cages out of sticks or just random things. I use bamboo sticks or the plastic stakes, and sometimes just make a little pyramid type thing and tie those together. But you do need to support types of plants. Yes. That's a really good question. So Suzanne's wondering, where is she going to sit this? Are the squirrels and rabbits going to eat it? They definitely will eat it if given the opportunity. But because you have sage in there and because you have chives in there, I find that the critters don't like those plants. And they're less likely to browse on the plants if you have a blending like this. So I would still keep it pretty close to your home on your patio, but somewhere where you have enough sun. But you could really put it anywhere. The deer, these pots right here. So this is a little pizza salsa garden that we did at the school. None of these plants have been browsed. There's 3 plants that are just like this, and the other 2, the deer have munched on the tomatoes, but nothing else. And they've just munched just a little bit. So with herbs, you're pretty safe. There are not a lot of critters that want to mess with your herbs. Yeah, it just needs to be in the sun. 6 to 8 hours. Cool. Also, the last 2 pages are in your handout are all about native plants. So one of the pages is from Homegrown National Park. And these are all keystone species. So these plants are really important for biodiversity. They support a lot of life. So when you consider planting natives, these are plants that the experts, so to speak, say, these are really good plants, plant these. A lot of these plants you can easily obtain around here. So on the back page, there are some resources where you can find seeds and plants. Just to give a little bit of a plug to the Kalamazoo area Wild Ones, which I'm a member of, we offer a plant exchange twice a year, once in the spring, we just had it, and then once in the fall. And it doesn't matter if you have plants to bring in exchange. You can just come, you can talk to us about native plantings, you can talk to us about native plantings in containers, and we will send you with a bunch of plants. So there are a lot of local groups that you can turn to for that. The page after that, so we've got Homegrown National Park, and then there's a really great article here from the Wild Ones, the West Cook, Wisconsin chapter, and it's all about native plants and container gardening. And it talks a little bit about the trials and errors and also provides plant lists here if that's something you're interested in. If you're interested in ornamentals, I really don't know a ton about ornamentals. I add some of them, but I don't do like big container gardening with ornamentals. But you can visit your local library, like I did for all of these beautiful books, and you can grab these books. If you are a Portage Library resident, you can also grab all of the seeds that you need, including vegetable seeds, fruit seeds, shrub seeds, native wildflower seeds. These are all free. Portage District Library has a really cool seed catalog little setup. It's adorable and it's all free. So there are lots of resources and lots of ways for you to get started. All right. Do you have any questions before we wrap up? TiAnna is on a mission. Oh, look, that's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful. Oh, so if you are unsure, like here's a leaf real quickly here. So this leaf, it looks pretty awful, but it has a patterned spotted thing going on, right? So there are now apps that you can just point your camera at this leaf and it'll tell you what's wrong. I haven't tried those myself, but I've heard from other people that they actually work really, really well. But you can also just turn to the internet, or any of those container gardening books have a little section of plant diseases and things to look out for. So if you find a pest, you have to think about how are you going to get rid of that pest. Spiders are your friends. Like I encourage spiders. I know, right? Like all of my pots have big webbing. I don't clean them. The aesthetic part doesn't matter much to me because the spiders will take care of a ton of the pests. But if you're not into spiders, that's cool too. Most pests like this guy here, you can just pick these things off. If you need to use a chemical to treat your plant, just make sure that you are matching the right chemical to the plant. If it's a food plant, please take a lot of time considering how you want to treat that. All right, TiAnna, what else? You can if you need to. Yeah. So she's asking about using more harsh chemicals with container gardening. What did you ask for specifically? What did you say? Oh, diatomaceous earth. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you said DEET. And I was like, well, DEET's pretty strong. Like, I would not be spraying my plants with DEET. Diatomaceous earth. Yeah, definitely. You can use that for slugs and things like that. Mm-hmm. Slugs are probably my biggest problem on my patio. And I have like a little sacrificial area. Oh, yeah, I got that last cover. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's like another reason you have to watch them constantly, right? Hmm. Right. Cool.
So,
All right.
with that being said, I want to thank everyone for joining us, all of our friends that joined us virtually. Want to encourage you to come out and join us at 810 Bryan Street. We are here on Tuesdays. Our classes begin at 6 o'clock. Want to thank everyone in the audience that took the time to come and see us and hope that you will join us again for part 2. Make sure that you talk to your babies so that they can grow to be big, healthy, and strong. And we'll see you again real soon.
So
Thank
just
you.
to add to what we're doing the next meeting, so we'll be checking in on your plants, seeing if you can propagate them, checking for disease, and then we're also going to be talking about how you can overwinter these friends inside your home. So, but also we're going to close the same way that we started. That there are no gardening mistakes, only experiments. And if you kill these plants, it's okay. And if you'd like more plants because you don't want anybody else in the workshop to know that you killed your plants, you can just message me and I will get you a fresh set of plants. Thank you so much.